With over 500 criminals against humanity now behind bars in ordinary jail cells, and almost 120 men and women that have recuperated their identities after they were stolen by the military from their biological families when they were infants, the ruling Front for Victory government have honoured human rights policy like no other before it. Human rights activists say that they are the only political option that will continue investigating the horrors of the dictatorship.
The Front for Victory has demonstrated through its actions that it is totally in accordance with this national project, which includes memory, one of the pillars of our struggle, memory, truth and justice.
The Argentine Popular Movement argues that the two representatives of the neoliberal bloc in Argentina, Mauricio Macri of the Cambiemos coalition and Sergio Massa of UNA, want to put an end to the human rights policies of the past 12 years.
For Macri, all the work done over the past 12 years is a scam. Our lives, our history, the years in which our identity was stolen, all the violence we were forced to go through are all a scam. He reduced it to that. Saying that the human rights struggle is a scam gives him the platform to confront us and say that this is a thing of the past.
The party that holds a majority in the Cambiemos coalition, the right-wing Pro Party, abstained earlier this month when voting on a draft submitted by the Front for Victory to create a joint commission to investigate the complicity of the civilian corporate sector with 1970s state terrorism.
The Pro Party has in its team of economic advisors a man called Carlos Melconian. The fact that this man, who is responsible for nationalizing and essentially transferring to all the Argentine people the debt incurred by the civil-military dictatorship, and who today gives out advice on how our government should run the economy, our government which has to pick up the country from such a huge debt, is something I find a joke and extremely violent.
As for the other pro-neoliberal candidate, Sergio Massa, human rights organisations see his proposal to use the armed forces in the fight against drug trafficking as a very dangerous threat to human rights and accuse him of seeking to criminalise poverty. Leo Politico, teleSUR, Buenos Aires.
According to a military source, 45 opposition fighters from the 1st Coastal Division, including their leader Basil Zemo, were killed in the Russian and Syrian airstrikes on Monday evening in the mountain area of northeastern Syria that was under their control. This group had received military support under a program supported by the United States, which includes US-made anti-tank rockets, which are the most powerful weapons in the arsenal of opposition fighters.
We are very pleased with the progress achieved by the Syrian army. No matter how hard the West supports the terrorists and whatever type of weapons they give them, we are the victors.
A US official has revealed that Russian fighters came very close to US planes in two separate incidents over Syria. The first one happened a couple of weeks ago when a Russian fighter passed a US plane at a distance of 500 feet. And that the second was last Thursday when Russian plane came within 1,500 feet of two US jets. The officials say there were no hostile moves on either side, nor or any indication of hostile intent in the two incidents.
The United States was and still is trying to stand in the way of us and our allies. But the situation has changed, and it is clear that Syria and its allies have seized the momentum. But the situation has changed, and it's clear that Syria and its allies have seized the moment, and particularly the Russians, who have been able to show the whole world their strength in Syria.
This change is clear as the Syrian army, supported by the Russian warplanes, has been making progress on several fronts with remarkable speed. They have retaken control of a large sector stretching more than 80 kilometers south of the city of Aleppo in the past few days. Amid successive collapse in the ranks of the militant and the mass flight of hundreds of them. Hazm Abdullah, teleSUR, Syria.
It was 1985 when they came for the first time to the Institute of Legal Medicine, seeking information on the fate of the relatives who went missing during the Palace of Justice siege, one of the deadliest confrontations between Colombia's governments and guerrillas. Now they have gathered here once again after knowing that the remains of 3 of the disappeared have been identified.
For 30 years, our loved ones were disappeared, and yet 30 years after, we still don't know the truth. The Colombian state owes us the truth on what they did to our relatives after they were taken alive from the headquarters of the Justice Palace.
11 people disappeared after being taken alive from the building by the military, who violently retook the Palace of Justice from its occupation by the M19 guerrillas. An army colonel has already been convicted for the disappearances, and in 2012 the Inter-American Human Rights Court convicted the Colombian state too.
For us, this is a bitter and sweet situation. Sweet as finally we have found our relative and at least we know the body remains are there. But bitter because there is still no truth and there is still no justice.
But the bitterness also comes as out of the 3 bodies that have been identified, 2 were already buried as others victims who also died during the Justice Palace siege. Now, and after 30 years, those 2 families will have to start from the scratch and struggle for the truth on what happened to their loved ones, where their bodies are, and why they were confused.
That's why we call upon the military that led the Palace of Justice siege operations to finally tell the truth. In the wake of the current peace process, they should hand over the disappeared. It's been enough time for them to finally allow the families to close this episode of sadness and sorrow.
This new episode comes right after the FARC and the government have reached an agreement to find the estimated 45,000 people that have disappeared within Colombia's armed conflict, a deal that the families can just hope to become a reality. Natalia Margarita, TeleSUR, Bogotá.
Gladys Lanza is a Honduran women's rights defender. She was accused of defamation just for speaking out for a woman that was sexually harassed. Even though the evidence proves her innocence, she could face jail.
According to the preliminary sentence, they forced me to sign a book monthly that guarantees that I will not escape or leave the country. I have to do this until the Supreme Court confirms, changes, or cancels the sentence against me.
The election of a new Supreme Court on January next year seemed as an opportunity to stop political persecution and criminalization of protests, but analyzing the process by which it will be elected, experts believe little will change.
The new Supreme Court has a problem from its origins, product of the manipulation and the election of the nominee board. Its confirmation is made to choose judges that will work for impunity, so there will be no change in the persecution against human rights defenders, no change in the criminalization that we have seen until now.
When we see the election process of the new Supreme Court, we feel that it won't be as transparent as it should be. This new court will be manipulated because in the Congress they have defined the sectors that will vote in favor and against, and the political parties' interests are more important than the people's political interests and justice.
With a manipulated justice system, impunity in Honduras will continue applying the law only against those who oppose the government policies. Gerardo Torres, TeleSUR, Central America.